people can help you achieve more than you can achieve on your own. Are you coachable? It's okay to bet on myself. Like when I bet on me, I'm going to come out the other side in a positive light.
Real estate agents, welcome back to the RMG Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Reed Moore, here with my awesome co-host, Jake Bartlett.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, today we have another one of the incredible Master Series interviews with a good friend of mine. But before we get to him, I want you guys to remember to go to rmgagentpodcast.com for any of our additional materials, for our action guides, for webinars that we've done in the past. Our goal here is to impact, empower, and encourage you in your real estate career. Jake, who are we interviewing?
We have got the master out of Boise, Chase Craig, who I also know on a very small level compared to you, but I do know that Chase is he's a grinder, and he really ground his way into the real estate business. And so this is going to be an exciting episode for you. What else did he have to say to us?
It was just great. It's such an incredible story of how somebody goes from working outside of this industry and just working their tail off to getting an opportunity, working 10 times harder than people think that is even possible. Mm-hmm. And then, fast forward 10, 15, 20 years later, they've built a really big business. And just hearing the story of how he got there is really encouraging, especially when right now a lot of agents are being asked to, rightly, grind.
Yeah, I think a phrase that comes to my mind is embracing the suck. There are parts that people refuse to embrace, and the more you are willing to embrace, the easier this will be. So with that, as Reed said earlier, we are here to impact, empower, and encourage your real estate career. And here is Chase Craig.
All right, guys, enjoy. Chase, welcome, my friend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me, Reed.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm glad we finally got the chance to do this. And gosh, how long have we known each other?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think you came and taught some classes in my market center probably 10 years ago or so.
Yeah, and it's always funny because there's these people that are kind of adjacent to people right? You're talking to somebody and they're like, oh, my coach is Chase. And then they're like, Chase who? Chase Craig. And then you hear it again, and you hear it again, and you hear people say, oh, like one of my mentors is this guy, and then all of a sudden your paths cross, and you're like, yes, like I feel like I know this guy. So
yeah, well, I've taken a lot of notes listening to you, and obviously you're my coach now, so it's all full circle, man. I really appreciate being in and around business with you for sure. There's a lot of wisdom here.
Oh man, my pleasure. It's definitely a gift. So, so our stories kind of lead up to who we are, and that can really be an entire podcast in and of itself. But we're talking to real estate professionals, talking to people who are rolling up their sleeves, they're in the trenches, they're doing the work of real estate, which you and I have both done for a long time now, right? Collectively, you and I are like 43 years or 44 years doing this, right? Which you have the hair still, I don't. It is what it is. But the question I like to start out with is, why should somebody listen to you?
Going right for it. I love it, actually. As someone who's a high D, I can appreciate getting right into it. Why should someone listen to me? I think that's an interesting question. So this is my 19th year in the real estate business. During that time, those 19 years, I've sold over 3,500 homes. I was named Realtor Magazine's top 30 under 30 in 2011, so dating myself a little bit there. And, the youngest Realtor of the Year for the Boise Regional Realtors, which is the highest honor that they bestow, in the association. And of course, I was producing. I wasn't just volunteering inside the association itself. So great question. Now, I say all those things not to brag. This is, if anything, why I think people should listen to me. When I got licensed, before I got licensed, I was, I owned a house. I was married with 2 kids, and I made $12 an hour working at the Home Depot.
Wow.
And no other income. My wife was going to school at the time. We had 2 babies that were tiny. They were only 15 months apart. And I don't know who's out there right now that can relate to this, either right now or maybe in the past, but that's maybe lived paycheck to paycheck. I lived what I like to say was tax return to tax return, which means my paychecks did not cover my bills. I needed the tax return every year to build up a little bit of a nest egg to pay the imbalance that I had every single month.
Wow.
And, working at the Home Depot, I got into this job cycle where I'd change jobs, and they only give you a raise once every 12 months. Well, I'd been in that job for 8 months, and then I changed jobs, and 4 months later, I'm like, where's my raise? And they're like, oh no, you changed jobs, so your cycle starts over.
Wow.
I'm like, what? So I wait 20 months to get a raise, Reed. And guess how much my raise was?
Oh, I feel like it's going to be cringy. $2 an hour.
Oh my God, you'd be the best boss ever. I might still work at Home Depot, actually. I got 28 and a half cents an hour.
Oh my
And my
gosh.
boss looks me right in the eyes and she says, the good news is we're going to round the half a cent up. And if you're driving right now listening to this and you don't have your calculator, 2,080 hours a year at half a cent is $10.40 per year. So I was like, thank you for this gift. But I drove home and I was like, I couldn't help but feel like I was trapped. Because I did all the things I was supposed to do. My boss is even telling me like, hey, you get good marks on the way they did the scoring back then at the Home Depot, but no one gets these outstanding ones. We don't even give those out. And I'm like, well, why do you have them if you don't give them out, right? Like, it didn't matter. Like, what I did, I wasn't going to be rewarded for the level of effort I put into the business. And I just felt like I was trapped. And one of my employees, actually, he's like, hey, we should get our real estate licenses. And no joke, that night I drove home, signed up for real estate school, and the rest is history. I can just tell you, like, someone should listen to me because, first of all, I've probably been where you're at. Secondly, I've definitely failed as much or more than most people out there. And, I really, really care about helping people get out of the situation that I was in. It's honestly, it's why I feel like I was put on this earth, is to help people navigate those difficult times. So
I love your story. I appreciate you sharing that. What are maybe 2 or 3 really, pivotal moments in your real estate career?
good question. So early on in my real estate career, I actually worked for a builder. And I'll never forget this. My boss at the time, I'd been there about 6 months, and my boss at the time is doing a review in front of the big boss. And my boss Renee, she's talking to Rhonda, my big boss, and Renee goes, Chase would be great. And I look at her and I'm like, would be? Uh-oh, what's going on here? And she goes, if he would just learn to shut up. And so I'm driving home. I had like an hour commute. I'm driving home, and the whole time I'm like, I can't believe she said that. And then Reed, probably like 6 months later, I got this really good idea that I need to listen more. And that was one of those pivotal changes in my career. I was so obsessed with learning about the business. And because I was in new construction, I learned all the floor plans. I learned all the site plans. I learned all the subdivisions. I knew all the pricing. And when someone would come in, I'd be like, do you know why this one's called the Montego? It's because the window in the middle is like, I didn't listen at all. So luckily, like I said, I got that brilliant idea that I should listen. Actually, I joke about that, but Renee was like, it was the cold hard facts. So there's 2 lessons inside of that, Reed, which I know you can already see. One is like, hey, shut up and listen. It's not about you. You're here to help other people reach their goals. But the second lesson inside of that message is like, people can help you achieve more than you can achieve on your own. Are you coachable?
I love that. I was talking to a client today about one of his agents, and the challenge that she was facing is something that she, like all of us, is completely unaware of. Right? There's no chance really of her actually fixing that thing, because the level of awareness that we all have, I think that we all like to think that we're self-aware, right? Like I identify as self-aware, like everybody else who's not self-aware. I think it just points to this fact that we need people. So how did you leverage that idea of I need people in my life to be successful?
Well, I mean, fortunately, I stumbled into I was on a team with a new construction company, and I didn't even realize it. Right, I didn't even know what a team was, but it was a team. It was a mega team. We sold more homes in our state per year than any other real estate company in the whole state, probably more than most did in the whole country. In 2006 or 2005, we sold 1,800 homes, and there was like 19 agents, I think.
Wow.
So like we were a mega team, but I didn't even know what teams were. So fortunately, I stumbled into a situation where it was a high growth minded business, high standards. Like it was. I mean, at my company, like every single person on the team makes 125 dials a day. That's what you do. And they wouldn't even hire seasoned agents because a seasoned agent would laugh their way out of the interview when they heard that. They're like, no, they don't. But me being a dummy coming from Home Depot, I'm like, all I got to do is dial 125 people a day? Hell yeah.
No more dodging forklifts.
Yeah, what's the record, man? I'm in. Like, let's go.
That's so interesting, right? Because how many times in our careers do we have limitations that we've put on ourselves, and they're not even in the same stratosphere of what's actually possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, like you know, if you think about the 125 dials a day, agents listening to this podcast right now are like, that is BS. That never happens. I would never do that. Blah, 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 blah. By the way, just side note, I was getting paid. I did the math on the 5.5 years I was with the builder. My average commission was 7% of 3%. So my split with my team, I got 7%, they got 93%. So how many agents would go work for that? And the reality is not very many.
There is this idea that when you're brand new to something, like it should be easy, right? And maybe that's not even the best way of saying it, but there's this really maybe hard truth, and that is people that absolutely just grind and absolutely just do the heavy lifting when they're brand new and don't have all the limitations of all the things that they can't do. They grow exponentially faster because it's kind of like the person who starts investing in the stock market when they're 15, right? They're just going to win, right? Over the course of their life, they're just flat out going to win. And so you being in that environment, and you and I are both old enough to know that's not an auto dialer. That's not even a nice cell phone. Like that's old school, like
I had a desk phone, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Boiler room style. Like, yeah. That's amazing. So, okay. So what did you do next? What was the next pivotal moment in your real estate career?
Good question. I think I left the builder that I was with, and not because of the environment, not because of the people, not because of the leadership. I had outgrown the opportunity. Like I was looking for more. I remember 4 or 5 times over, like every 6 months, I went into my boss, who was amazing, phenomenal person. And people would know who she is in the industry. Like she's an incredible leader. But I went into her office and I said, hey, like this isn't working for me. And she would be like, well, what if we did this? And I'm like, well, I trust you. Let's try it. And then 6 months later, same thing. And ultimately, we together decided like this is not the right opportunity for me. I needed to move on. And so that did 2 things for me. One, I really learned that it's okay to bet on myself. Like when I bet on me, I'm going to come out the other side in a positive light. It just time and time again, and maybe it's because I'm so prideful. I just refuse to fail in whatever it is I set out to do. But the second thing is it shaped the company that I've created, or that my business partner and I have created, because I never want someone who's talented to have to leave my business because I didn't create enough opportunity for them.
Yeah.
So I need to now make the world large enough for them so they never feel like they have to leave, which To be frank, if my old boss, 15 years ago or whenever that was, that was 2011, so 13 years ago, if she would have made those changes, I might still be there, right?
It's a great leadership lesson for all of us, and that is that in what areas are we creating ceilings or caps on our people, right? And there's this interesting tension, right? Because when I think about who you were growing up through that, is you were at the Home Depot and you were looking for more opportunity, but you weren't just looking for more unearned opportunity. I think that's like for newer agents or even younger people, there's this idea of I want more opportunity, but the leader can't actually provide that for you because you haven't outgrown your opportunity currently, right? Like I lose sleep over people in our organization that are so talented that I'm thinking like tomorrow I got to be better, right? To lead that person. The person who's not pushing me, who's not really challenging my leadership lid, and they want more opportunity. It's like, it's hard because I'm like, man, I want the best for you. But the reality is like, this is the opportunity that maybe you'll grow into.
That is like brilliant, Reed. This is why this is your podcast, and I'm just listening to it because that is a brilliant observation that you've just made, which is like, you do have to max yourself out before you go, begging for more. Not like I was begging. It was like, hey, I've done this. What else should I do? That's what talent looks like. Talent will come up to you and say, hey, you told me to do this. I did this. Now what? And if the answer is only, well, do more, then like that's probably not the best answer from the leader. But if the answer is like, oh, now that you've done this, you can do these 3 things, and then come back, like that's what I look at. I'm reminded of a time. Do you know who Coach Peterson is? He used to coach Boise State and then Washington. Great football coach. So I was fortunate enough to go see him at I think it was called Get Motivated seminar. There was like all these famous speakers. Zig Ziglar actually spoke at it, and there was, I don't know, half a dozen other speakers that were at this event. But Coach Pete from the Boise State Broncos, college football coach, was the best speaker by far. And I remember this is like etched in my soul, the way he said this. He's like, if you want more, then you need to be the best where you're currently at. He was actually talking about a special teams player. He's like, I've got a special teams player who wants to get a starting position as a running back. And I have to tell him, like, look, you're not going to get a starting position as a running back by being a poor special teams player. Like, you have to be the best special teams player you can be, and that's going to cause me to look at where else I can put you on the field. So if you just throw your hands up in the air, you're like, well, I'm not good at this lead generation thing, so I'm just going to wait for my boss to give me the slam dunk close deals. Like, that's not how it works, They don't want to give you those because you haven't even proven you could do any of your own business, right?
Yeah. There's something about choosing to do the hardest things in any industry and cutting your teeth on that makes you, even if it's not the exact same skill set that you need for what's next, there's something about going through the fear and the pain and the growth and everything that doing that hard thing does that sets you up for future hard things. And what I see younger or newer agents not do is not understand that the lead generation in our industry is completely irrelevant. It's the most important thing, but in a way it's totally irrelevant because it's your willingness to go through what it takes to be awesome at that opens up the rest of the world for you.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I mean, I don't even want to add to that because it's just it's so good.
So, thank you. Okay, so tell me about the first time that you epically fell on your face in real estate.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
or maybe the best time, worst or best, either one.
Yeah. Well, I'll do a brief story that'll get me to the falling on my face. So, I leave the builder, making 6 figures a year. I came from making 23 grand a year at the Home Depot. My first year at the builder, I made 65 grand. So I was like, I don't know what to do with all this extra money. Right.
Right.
So then I start making 6 figures and it was hard to leave, but I knew that I could do more and I was capped out. So I leave the builder in 2011, start brand new. So I have no leads, I have no database, I have nothing, and I have to start brand new in 2011. And it was April. So from April of 2011, that year I sold 25 homes. And that's not bad. Now I came from selling like 25 a month at the builder, right? So just to be clear.
Wow.
So I knew how to lead generate and I knew how to close buyers. Like I think 80% of those people were buyers. So 2012 rolls around and I hired a part-time assistant, which there's some lessons in that. But that year I sold 45 homes. 2013 rolls around, I have a part-time assistant and then I have a part-time showing agent and I sold 79 homes.
Wow.
Now you're like, where's the failure at? Now I'm getting there. 2014.
I'm like, I think I know where this is going because
Yeah. 2014 rolls around. So I went 25, 45, 79. 2014 rolls around and I'm like, you know what? The showing agent's great, but I want someone that can write the offers. So I hire a buyer's agent, and instead of hiring one buyer's agent, I end up hiring 3 buyer's agents because I can just train them all at the same time.
Of course.
Well, here's what happened. 2014, I sold 64 homes. So I sold 15 less than I did without any buyer's agents. And I don't know if you know much about buyer's agents, but you have to pay them. So if they end up doing a deal, you've got to give them some money. And, so not only did I sell less homes, but now I was giving up half my money on the homes that were being sold by the buyer's agents. So there was my first epic failure. Here's my takeaway from that. If I could go back and do it all over again, I would not hire a buyer's agent until I have completely maxed out every possible thing I can do that makes money in real estate. Because this is what you think about. Like, okay, if I was going to hire you, Reed, as a buyer's agent, you are like, why would I give half my money to Chase, right? Isn't that the natural kind of thing a buyer's agent thinks?
Totally.
Well, just so you know, if you're an agent out there and you're thinking that, like the rainmaker is thinking the same thing. They're like, why the hell would I give Reed half my money? Like we're both thinking the same thing. Well, here's the problem. Not only am I going to have to give Reed half the money on the deals I do, I'm also going to have to show him how to do the freaking deals, right? I'm going to have to slow down. I'm going to have to tell him how to overcome these objections. I'm going to have to tell him how to deal with this problem. I'm going to have to walk him through all the stuff. So while I'm giving him the business and giving him half the money, now I'm giving him my time too that I could have just closed the deal. And so all those things combined lead to a way lower net profit at the end of the day. And that was something I learned the hard way. That was a brutal year because I worked more hours and made less money.
Yeah, it's funny because I had it may have even been around that same season of my career. I had this epic trajectory, right? It was 3 million to 30 million in 3 years, right?
Wow.
And this is back when 30 million was a big number. I ended up doing the road show. People are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I'm on stage at a big event, right? And Gary Keller asked me, he's like, well, what's next? I'm like, next year the goal is 60 million, right? And everybody's like, oh. The next year I went from 30 million to 33 million. And spent twice as much money and built all this infrastructure and went so far backwards. It was epically painful, right? And, and then the next year people are like, hey, did you hit your goal? I'm like,
Stop talking to me.
Yeah. I just want to go hide. Oh my gosh, I love it.
No, I think that's a huge one, And I think I don't know why, because I had already heard other people doing this, and I'm like, well, I'm not other people, right? So my ego gets in the way. So yeah, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm kicking butt, I'm gonna go do X, Y, and Z. Like, by the way, all of those agents, you're thinking, well, Chase, you invested in your future, you train these agents, they all quit or got fired. So like there was zero investment at all. Like I paid them and that was it. I did learn. So there's education, right? Like Tony Robbins says in his Unlimited Power book, he's like, there's no such thing as failure. There's only outcomes that you can learn from. And I had some freaking outcomes that year. So
Yes. So you coach professionally and you have a large organization. And if you're like me, you're watching lots of agents go through it right now. Like now, for not everybody, for a lot of people, is pretty hard. And there's all the fear and all the stuff in the future and all the fear mongering. What would you say, as been around the block? What would you say to an agent that's listening to this about their future?
Wow. I read something earlier today that someone shared. This probability paradox is what it's called. And the theory is essentially this, like the more attention something gets, the less likely it is to actually happen. And the theory behind that is because, if you're wanting to sell the news or get people's attention, the most likely things to happen are not necessarily that sexy, right? Like it's way more sexy to say, hey, the whole real estate industry is going to get turned up on its head.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's also probably the least likely thing to happen, that like the entire industry completely changes forever and it'll never be the same, and it's the most drastic change you'll ever see. That definitely gets the most eyeballs and the most clicks and the most interest, but it's also probably not the most probable thing to happen. So if you were going to bet on probabilities, like Warren Buffett when he's investing, right? He's like, people eat chocolate 50 years ago and they eat chocolate today, and they're probably going to eat chocolate 50 years from now. Like, that's the kind of company I want to invest in. And
yeah.
And we know people are buying and selling real estate, and that's probably never going to change. We know that people are going to be involved helping people buy and sell real estate, and that's probably never going to change. So today, my advice would be, do the things that work, right? Like engage with people. This is a people business. Talk to people every day. Add to your database. Provide value. Make sure you highlight the value you provide. Tell stories about the times in which you've given value. And as the business shifts, if it does, like, be flexible. Don't be prepared to be flexible, whatever that might look like. It could look just like it does today for you 5 years from now, or it could be different. And I think the people who are willing to continue to put their nose down and get to work and be flexible, I think they're going to win.
I love that, right? There's so many opportunities to flinch. There's so many opportunities to stop sowing seed. And the moment that you do that, there's this potential but highly unlikely outcome that you're still not going to be ready for. And if anything else happens, you're definitely not ready for.
Yep.
Right? That's the gig. How do you deal with your fear, right? Like, I mean, not saying that you have any, or not saying that you've ever dealt with that, but in our profession, there's a lot of unknowns all the time, like getting paid, or like working and getting paid are not like together. How do you personally deal with the risk reward element of real estate?
So I think fear is very interesting. I personally believe, I don't know if this has been scientifically proven or not, but I personally believe that it's impossible to be afraid and in activity at the same time. And what I mean by that is, like, we're afraid to get into a fight, or we're afraid to get into the go-kart at the thing, or we're afraid to, I went skydiving one time. We were afraid to skydive, but I'll tell you, here's what happened. It actually happened at the builder. I won the sales award, and they're like, hey, you're going to go skydiving with the owner of the company. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. Right? And I was freaking out. And it was 3 weeks. And every single day, like, it was looming over me. And I was so afraid. In fact, the day of, I was sitting there with my family, and I was eating toast, and I was drinking Aftershock. It's like this cinnamon, like, fireball or whatever. I was drinking Aftershock because I was, like, so freaking nervous. I didn't think I could do it. So I finally get there. I'm tipsy, and I get to the plane, and they walk me through all the stuff, and then I get on the plane, and I'm freaking out. And then what happens, Reed? We jump out of the plane. And the second I got into action, the entire fear was gone. There was no fear. I was out of the plane, no fear. And so I liken that to real estate. Like if you're afraid, I don't know how I'm going to make my rent this month, like get into action. Go knock on doors. Go make phone calls. Like you cannot be in fear while you're doing the activity, in my opinion. So, I'm sure you could attempt to prove me wrong, and I would challenge you to like go get into action on whatever it is you know you need to do. And if you don't know what you need to do, then get with a coach like Reed or myself or someone else. Like get someone in your world that can help you identify the lanes in which you need to attack, and then attack, and watch the fear subside.
I love that. Just the antidote to fear is action, right? Like I've experienced that the same thing, right? Is like as soon as you're in momentum, as soon as you choose to do that thing, and now you're doing it, fear is no longer, it may be a passenger now, but it's certainly not the driver.
There you go. Maybe that I'll steal that. I'm gonna steal that. I like that.
Awesome. Well, man, Chase, I appreciate you sharing with everybody your wisdom and your insight. Is there anything else you want to leave an agent with? Let's say there's an agent right now, and they're doing this, and they're not hitting their goals. Maybe they're even questioning being in this business. But you and I are watching that person, and we know that they belong in this business. What would you say to them?
Oh man, I obviously am a firm believer in coaching. So everyone should have a mentor. Everyone should be a mentor. Now more than ever, I think you could rely on the people in your world. If you don't have the support at the brokerage you have or the company you have, I think consolidation in real estate is real, and it doesn't necessarily mean that people have to get out of the business. But why should we have 500 teams all paying for all this crap when you might be able to just join a team and save money, and it's a win for the team and it's a win for you? Like, put your ego to the side and consider all the possibilities. If you're truly considering getting out of the business, like what would it look like if you did something completely different inside of the business today? And just it's a question, and the answer might be that would be dumb and all those things, but like explore the question genuinely, and be very open-minded. It's amazing to me. I'll speak for myself. How many times I've turned down meetings because of my ego, and all sorts of things could have came from that. And in fact, Brent and I's partnership, we merged our companies together and started Livy and Select. And, the only way we could have done that is both of us had to put our egos to the side. And it's been phenomenal. Just the merger alone. Yeah. We saved $150,000 a year just in expenses, right? Because we had duplicate stuff and we didn't need it anymore. So being open-minded, I think, is massive, and setting your ego to the side, put that in place. Ask someone who's really close to you, like, do you have an ego, and how does it show up for you, and see what they say, because you might be thinking like I was, like, oh, I don't have an ego, but everyone has an ego. How is yours showing up, and how is it serving you?
Love it. Right on. Chase, thank you so much for spending the time with our audience and with me. It's always a pleasure, and thanks for dropping your wisdom.
Hey, thank you, Reed. I really appreciate it, man. RMG has been phenomenal for our business on the coaching side. So if you're out there and you need a coach, I don't know if Reed or his team have any openings, but you definitely should hit him up. We get some massive ROI, and we appreciate being in business with you.
Awesome. Same here, my friend. Appreciate you. All right, everybody, I hope that you guys really enjoyed our interview with Chase Craig. I hope that it just made a huge impact for you, that it leveled up your mindset about what's possible for you, what you're able to do. If you're staring down the gun of some really hard times right now, and you're looking at your activity and you're hearing from Chase and you're saying, I can't do that, in between you and doing that is a choice, and you can make it and you can do it. What else should we say before we get them off to the rest of their day?
Yeah, I will highlight that in between you and your goals is always the choice. And we're really good, at least I am with my kids, of telling them like your actions are a choice, your attitude is a choice. But then I see a lot of people refusing to make the choice of doing what's going to get them to their goals. And so, yeah.
Yeah, so if fear's standing between you and choosing who you can be to be able to get where you want to go, we want you just to challenge that. As always, we're here to impact, empower, and encourage you in your real estate career. We'll see you on the next one.